light is on.
Okay, this is an interview at the Public Library, Center Moriches, New York, 10th of March 2004, 2:30 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Well, my full name at present is J. King Wallace, Jr. I was born on July the 27th, 1923.
Okay.
Supposedly in Brooklyn.
Okay.
My mother was passing through.
All right. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I graduated high school,
Okay.
went to work in the bank, and volunteered for service in the Army in 39 Whitehall Street.
So you enlisted.
Yes.
Why did you select the Army?
Because my father was an Army officer, and what other good reason could I have? And he was on active duty with the Civilian Conservation Corps at the time. And of course, when war started, he went in the Quartermaster Corps and did things Panama, Hawaii, and Korea.
All right. Where did you go for your basic training?
Well, first we went to the induction center over here at Camp Upton, and then from there they gave me the paperwork for the group that was going down to Fort Leonard Wood. That was an engineer replacement training center. And why they gave me the papers, they said, well, you're a Boy Scout, we can trust you, or some nonsense like that. But that was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. It's outside of Joplin.
All right, now, was this the first time you'd been really away from home, or had you been with your father to the
Well, I've
Conservation
been away to
Corps?
Boy Scout camp,
Boy
you know.
Scout camp,
This is my
okay.
69th year in the Boy Scouts, continuous registration, since I was 12.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Now, what kind of training did you receive out in Missouri, Leonard Wood?
Pretty rough. And, of course, by that time, it was, we're getting into winter. And, well, KP, that's good training.
Yeah.
Guard duty, that's good training. And, of course, up on the rifle range, the long hikes.
Now, what were you using an 03 at that time?
Yes.
What kind of uniforms did you have? Did you still have some of the World War I leftovers, the helmet and so on, or?
It's a good question. I don't recall wearing a helmet, to be honest with you, at that time. As I say, the 03 was our rifle. Mostly we were wearing picks and shovels and axes,
Okay.
learning pioneer work, doing Bailey bridges, pontoon bridges, or whatever we were working on at that time. And of course, we went there, I think it was 13 weeks or more basic training. But one night they woke us up and got us out of the barracks and told us we're at war. The Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor. So, well, the training cycle's a little reduced, gentlemen. We got to get you ready to get out there.
Now, do you remember the reaction of yourself and the others around you when you found out about Pearl Harbor?
Well, being a young fellow, I guess I thought, wow, how could they do that? Something of that nature. It's kind of in a foggy bottom there for that question, because I would imagine there were a lot of serious faces and wow, you know, but now we're at war. And of course later on they declared war on Germany, but by that time we were on a war footing. Actually were, I guess, long before, because the powers that be probably knew what was coming. And they're glad that they did. It's because they made preparations.
Do you, what was I going to ask? While you were in training, were your units mechanized, or did you use any horses at all?
No.
It was all mechanized. Okay.
Yeah, mechanized, yeah.
Some of the units-
Armstrong mechanized.
Because some that
We walked
to,
everywhere, we
that
marched
early,
everywhere, you know.
They were still using some horses. Did you receive any specialized training afher Camp Wood, or you said
Fort Leonard Wood? No, we were
your
shipped
training
out.
was cut down somewhat?
No, we completed our training, and we did everything that was required, but it was just compressed. Probably the days were longer. Actually, it was 24/7, let's face that fact. No, from there we went to the units they needed replacements, and I was sent to Fort Ord, California, and that was to the 35th Engineer Combat Regiment. And there's another place where they'd get you up in the middle of the night to let you lay on the beach just in case the Japanese decide to invade, because they were apparently shelling oil tanks along near Monterey and that sort of thing. That's the unit I went with to build the Alaskan Highway. And we went right up through Idaho into Canada, Edmonton, Alberta, and so on. And Saskatoon was another place, I guess. Anyway, we wound up at Dawson Creek. And that's where we got off the train. And on the way up there, the train would stop occasionally to let us get out and exercise and so on. And the locals would come out and would throw balls back and forth and talk and whatnot. It was interesting in that respect. But it was a big country. But we wound up in Dawson Creek, and from there it was trucks over a winter trail. One spot where the only way we could get up the hill was teams of horses. You asked about horses. That's when I first encountered horses. That's what they were there for, to tow the trucks up the hill. Because it was a winter trail. It was all snow. And from there, we got to our base camp at Fort Nelson. And we set up camp, put up pyramidal tents, made wooden doors instead of using tent flaps. Had our Sibley stoves going all the time. Most we did at that time was to collect wood so we kept warm. And other duties, whatever was called for.
Now, did you have a dirt floor in your tents, or did you have wooden
No,
floors?
dirt floor. Dirt floor. Well, if you wanted to, you could, split logs and make a dirt floor. Because most of the lumber, whatever, was used for other purposes. It wasn't there for you to. Although we were able to scrounge enough to make a door.
Uh-huh.
We probably made hinges out of leather or something like that. And we had a water point down by the Layard River, and they pumped water so we'd have for washing and cooking and that sort of thing. Although my first real bath wasn't until the ice broke in the river and we jumped in and quickly.
They didn't have a shower point for you?
Oh yeah. We were able to, you were able to wash one way or another. Although it being, kind of chilly, in the wintertime, of course, the lowest I saw it was somewhere around 50 degrees below zero. And it gets pretty cold.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a dry cold. It's a dry cold. And of course, as soon as spring broke, we started to break camp, and we started out on building the Alaskan Highway.
Now, can I go back a second? What kind of winter gear did you have? Your equipment,
We
clothing?
we had felt liners, if I recall, that we could wear, like overshoes, and what they call those? They were like khaki pants with a lining that was sewed into it, and we had heavy jackets, and we had hats that you pull the flaps down, that kind of thing, and gloves, and quite comfortable.
Any problems with frostbite or cold injuries?
I didn't have any. There might have been. I don't recall now, but there could well have been. Yes, yes. And every once in a while, a dog sled team would come through, and because the locals, the natives, and so on, they were active hunting or whatever, and they'd pass through, and it was really something to see a whole bunch of dogs, and the dog sled, and the thing would be piled high with whatever, hides or whatever they were out after. And we put up a flagpole, and we had retreat every day, and we even had a band that played, guys that played. Of course, after a while, there was no need to play instruments when you were digging and shoveling and chopping and hauling and dragging.
So when you guys weren't working, you entertained yourselves by
this
band or?
This one, like I said in my overview there, this gentleman who lives in Southampton, incidentally, he kept us amused. This man could tell one joke after another and sing songs about anything you could imagine. And he kept us entertained in the tent in our squad. I was in the squad. Of course, being, still 18, I was the youngest one, because most of them were draftees. I don't know how many real regular Army men there were, But I was always paid first because I was in the regular army. So when the pay line formed up, the regulars got paid first. That's the preferential treatment you got for volunteering.
Basically, did you get a lot of OJT training, like maybe training to operate a bulldozer? Or?
I never operated a bulldozer. I drove trucks.
Uh-huh.
And I operated a pick and a shovel and an axe, basically. Because when we finally broke camp and started out, we had to corduroy a lot. Corduroying is when you chop down trees, delimb them, and butt for top, so they fit nice together. And then they would bring in gravel or whatever they could on top to pack it down, and then you had a fairly solid roadway. In fact, there was a time when they lost equipment because of the muskeg. It's like a bottomless pit. Once it thawed out, they got in, they couldn't get them out. They were gone. And then, of course, things started to dry out, and the bulldozer operators were up ahead of us, and they were swamping. They were knocking trees down for the right-of-way. And, of course, the survey crew was way ahead of them, and they were lining up the best route to go through the terrain to our next destination. One time, my squad, 2 squads I guess it was, were flown ahead, and we were in a float plane, in one of those bush pilots, and all our equipment was packed in there, and 2 of us, my buddy and I, were laying on top. Can you imagine how that was? And he's trying to take off on this river, get it up on step, and finally takes off, So we're flying fine. My buddy gets airsick. Well, he's got a hat, so he used the hat, but oh boy, we landed fine, unloaded and whatnot, but it's one of the incidents you laugh about. But we stayed there for a month at this river. I forget the name of it now, but the road was scheduled to go across this river. We built a bridge with just the tools we had. We didn't have chainsaws or anything like that. We had Armstrong saws. And we built the whole bridge. And it was pretty good. It was pretty level and all, And when the meat ran out, we took our guns and went looking, by then we had an M1, and shooting whatever we could shoot. If it was a small game, you had to shoot it in the head, otherwise you hit in the body, there wasn't much left. And fishing and so on. But anyway, it was nice and level. So the first bulldozer that came went across that bridge to the other side and started swamping, clearing out. But that bridge looked like this. And then we went over the Canadian Rockies. That was beautiful country up there. And let's see, where did we wind up? Well, we were on our way to Whitehorse. So we did our section, and then when winter came, we were engaged.
Now, how long was your section? Were you assigned to
Oh,
a certain
gee, how long was it?
mileage?
Close to 300 miles, I believe.
Or did you have
That's
to
something
do-
I'd have to research on, because I don't remember.
Well, approximate.
It's
Did you have
long.
to do a lot of blasting? Was there a
We
lot
did
of
blasting too, yes, I did some of that, because you had to get, like would go around a lake, and the bluffs would be right almost down to the lake itself, maybe a little shelf there, so you had to blast off to get around the lake. Of course, subsequently, they rerouted a lot of sections and improved it and so on. So today, it's not a dust bowl like it used to be, I guess. They blacktop as much as they could, or hard gravel the rest, and so on. And, well, that's what happens, like the bridges we built, the culverts we built, they're all made of wood. They've all subsequently were replaced with steel and concrete bridges. But, and then one time, to get across a river, we took pontoons and lashed them together, put an outboard motor on it, and used it as a ferry. And I have a picture somewhere of me sitting there being a ferry boat captain. Or they would put a line across and then hook up a pulley kind of thing and angle the boat against the current, whatever direction you're going in, so you would push you right along. If you're this way, the stream was coming this way, or reverse it the other way. And came winter, then it was winter trail. And we had our galleons and so on, road graders, clearing the snow. And then we relayed what we called the Fairbanks Freight. And these were basically one-eyed Studebakers. Let me clarify that. They had one headlight, no heaters, and they weren't all-wheel drive, just rear-wheel drive. But they would be loaded with equipment, foodstuffs, canned goods, you name it, going up the line. And I'm assuming it was because the Japanese were, of course, in the Aleutian Islands, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't get any further than the Aleutian Islands. And as you know, they subsequently drove them out of there. But I think I drove, if I recall, number 15 truck to go over the highway at that time. And there was other types of equipment too going up north. There were, I think, what was that thing? Supposedly constructed for the desert. By that time, I don't know, the desert thing was pretty much over, so that was sent up. It was a great big truck, I forget what it was, but it was painted like desert colors, whereas the Studebakers were all that Army OD color. And we finally got a vacation.
Before you do that, could you just hold this up so Wayne can focus on that? No, you can hold it back
You
toward
gotta hold
yourself
it
a little bit
back.
more, you'll be able to
Yeah.
focus. Now, where was that taken and when? Or you don't have to tell exactly where,
It was on the highway, of
on the
course.
highway.
Yeah, yeah. As it says on the Alcan, that's the Alaska-Canada Highway, which is commonly referred to as the Alaska
Yes.
Highway.
Now, did the trucks get stuck in the mud a lot, or what?
Oh, sure. We had ruts right up to the axles. And the bulldozer would have to come and drag them out or whatever, or one would pull another and so on.
So
Fantastic.
you were using four-wheel drive most of the time then?
Well, that's in the actual construction, but these trucks never came back. We'd relay them for 100 miles, from one relay station to another. And then we'd stay there till the truck from our relay station would come back and pick us up and bring us back to our home relay station, and then we'd get on the bottom of the list. And then you just go through it, and you wait for your next turn.
Now,
This
were
was in the
all-
wintertime.
I'm sorry, were all the vehicles that you used stenciled saying Alcan Highway on them, or?
No, they weren't, no.
Oh,
No, the regular GI trucks that we used in the construction. But the trucks that went through, they probably had that on, yeah.
Okay.
And this was what,
It says
Obviously
42,
wintertime,
43, and
yeah.
then in the winter, yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's, you get an idea what we were wearing
Yes, yes.
at that time.
Yeah. Okay, so how long were you assigned up there? And
Well, we stayed there till the road was finished. Finished enough to get equipment through and to be usable. And then we came back to, where was it, Camp White in Oregon. And there we, this was something, when we came back, of course we had our furlough, and we flew to the States and took the train, stopped at my aunt and uncle's in Winnetka, Illinois, and my cousin was there too, and then home, and then back up to the highway, and then from there we came back to Camp White, Oregon. There was more training, and because of shortage of manpower, guess where we wound up? Tule Lake, California, harvesting potatoes. So all day long you'd be bent over with potato sack between your legs and some more sacks on hooks on this belt, picking up potatoes. And then you'd pick up a bag full and put it on the side and just keep going. Or you'd be going along with a truck and picking these up and putting them on the truck, or you were driving the truck or whatever. But, and then the thing that was funny about that was the guys were saying, gee, you got all them Japs over there in internment camps, why can't they be out doing this? Not realizing that they were good, honest, faithful American citizens, but why they didn't put the Germans in internment camps, I don't know, or whatever, or the Japanese or whatever, but, the Japanese, they did, but...
So they made the soldiers work on civilian potato farms?
We had to, you got to get the crop out. You can't let it rot in the ground. And of course, potatoes, like bread, is a staple of life, I guess. Yeah. Let's see, what happened after that? Oh, from there, took a test. And I think that was from Camp White, yeah. Because it was Fort Ord was where we went, first assignment, up to the highway. And I was picked to go to the Central Signal Corps training school. and that was at Camp Crowder, Missouri. And there I learned to be a communications radio operator, that kind of thing. And I was there for quite a while, but I never went back to the original unit. From there, I was sent down to Camp Livingston in Louisiana, and that was the permanent outfit, I guess you might say, till the end of the war. That was the headquarters, 1145th Combat Engineer Group. And there we did more training, work with the radio and so on. And then we went, I think it was to Fort Dix, and embarked for the European theater. But we missed D-Day, of course, because this was late in December, in 1944. And we landed in England, and we stayed in a town called Yeovil. And there we were constantly training, continued training, refreshing your mind and so on. And was assigned what they called a command car, which had a radio in the back. I think it was called an SCR 197. And we'd go out in the English countryside and practice sending messages and so on. And the thing I remember about that was the English ladies would come out, and we were there, bring out a teapot with a cozy over it. That was like you knit a sweater, put it on to keep it hot, and probably some crumpets or something like that. And I thought it was great. I thought that was great. So we were there until almost the end of the year, and then we went across to France in an LST. And of course, crossing the channel was really something, because that LST went from rail to rail, rail to rail. I never got sick, and I thought the meals were great, but most of the guys, they didn't want the meals. They threw it over the side. And we went up the Seine River, and the thing I remember most about that was all these abandoned wagons that the Germans had used as transport, because they used a lot of horse transport. And they were just abandoned on the one bank, because they couldn't get them across the Seine River. And where did we landed at a place called Rouen, that was on the Seine River. And we were on our way to wherever they were sending us, but we had to go through where the Battle of the Bulge was raging. Luckily, we didn't stay there too long, but getting through was quite hairy, because I remember driving my truck down this one road, and there's a Tiger tank down there, and but I guess he didn't want to waste a shell on just a little four-wheeled vehicle. He's looking for bigger meat to slaughter. Then we wound up down, where the heck was that place called? I think the French called it Ribeauvillé, and the Germans called it Robertsweiler. And that was near the Vosges Mountains. And the story of the Vosges Mountains was, this was the first time in history the Vosges Mountains were ever taken by an enemy force. Apparently the Germans lost it. And I can remember a couple of old castles I was able to visit there. But the thing, as I recall, that didn't shock me, but it made me, realize that, yeah, this war is hell. There was a half-track. And I looked in the half-track, and all I saw was the guy's boot, part of his leg hanging out of it. Apparently, grenade, I don't know what. Could have been a mortar round, probably. And that's all. And gone. And of course, along the roads, at that time, dead bodies. I was very fortunate in World War II. Only got shot at once. And that was like that's how close. And another time, I must remember, was it in France? Where was that? It was somewhere around that area, on our way into Germany. And in this town, I forget the name of it, the enemy aircraft was strafing. This one plane came through strafing. And luckily, I ducked into a doorway. As far as I recall, I don't think anybody was hit, but that was another close shave.
Now, this is the radio vehicle that you
That's the radio
used?
vehicle, yes.
It's a little larger than a normal Jeep?
Oh, yes. Yes. That's a Dodge.
Mm-hmm. And your radio was in the back seat?
In the back seat. Not on connected to the back of the front seat. And you'd sit on the back seat and send your messages. Of course, when you send a message, if you were not rolling along, if you were just stationary, you sent the message and skedaddled, because it's called triangulation.
Yes.
They zero in on your radio message, and
What kind of weapons did you carry?
well, I carried basically a carbine, and that's a small
Yes.
rifle, you know. And also, what was that? It was a pistol that we had liberated or picked up somewhere, and that was about it. I mean, other than like the M1, that was we had those in California. Took them. Didn't everybody take a piece up to the highway, but we had them there if we needed them. And they might have had them in the supply room, I don't know, but we certainly didn't want to be chopping down trees and digging holes and whatnot with a rifle slung over our shoulder. And yeah, that was about it. But of course we picked up souvenirs here and there, which I still have, and I guess eventually I'll leave them to my son. And but that was quite an experience there. We crossed we shipped a lot of our equipment ahead because we were going to cross the Rhine into Germany, but where we were going to go was called the Colmar Pocket because the Germans surrounded it, and what equipment we had there was lost, and I lost all the pictures I had made in England, which is unfortunate. I don't have them today, but so we went on, and we were thinking that we were chasing Adolf in Berchtesgaden, because we went mostly southern Germany into Austria. And we saw very little of the enemy because we were a headquarters company. And we supplied the information. We sent out this a jeep, I forget what they call that darn thing, but what it would do, they'd follow a road or whatever, and this thing would make like a map, directions and so on, show them different routes to take or whatever. But unfortunately, they hit a landmine, and these things happened quite often. And of course, we were at Dachau, and seeing these emaciated prisoners was terrible, and piles of naked bodies piled up. They had to bulldoze them into holes. And these little shanties, like little buildings where they had stored like all suitcases or all clothing or whatever that they had taken from these poor people. And to see these people come out, mostly men, in their prison uniforms, most of them had, they were walking skeletons. And how they could be treated that way just blows your mind. And it wasn't a very healthy smell around there either. But it's something, you know, you hate to ever see it happen again. Man's inhumanity to man. So easy. It's still going on. It's still going on. I don't know. I like this new Democratic candidate for president, Mr. Kerry. He's against the war. I'm against war, but if it comes down to it, there's no other choice. You either want to be subjugated or you want to be free and independent. And how do you bring that about? Force of arms, unfortunately. People just cannot talk things out and come to any reasonable, common sense solution to their problems, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, it was just you.
Okay, now were you in occupied Germany or into?
Of course.
How long
Yeah,
were
we
you
went
there?
all the way to the end of the war. In fact, the last thing, that's how I got my my Luger. This German officer was relieving himself in the bushes. And when I challenged him, he came out with his pants dragging, and I took his pistol and sent him on his way. And the other thing was seeing all these German prisoners of war marching down the Autobahn. That's all you saw, was just rank after rank after rank, right to the horizon. Well, I don't think the road was that, probably went down the dip, but that was very impressive as well. We got as far as Berchtesgaden, but of course he wasn't there. And from there on, it was a very short occupation, and we were sent to Epernay, France, where we were, how would I put it, retraining or getting ready soldiers who didn't have enough points to go home, to be discharged. And I operated a generator trailer. What that was is wherever they were doing their training, the riverbank or whatever, as engineers, I'd set up my generator with speakers, and they were able to instruct, and everybody could hear what was going on. And that was my job while I was there. Epernay, as I recall, was the center of the French champagne industry, and we were surrounded by vineyards and all that sort of thing. And I never drank any of it, but maybe I did, I don't recall. And then from there I went to a place called Camp Top Hat, and that was in Namur, Belgium. And that's where I shipped out to come home, and on a Liberty ship.
Let me just ask you something. Camp Top Hat, I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
No.
That's what it was called.
Was that the name of brand of a cigarette at that time?
No, that was the
Because
name of the camp.
A lot of those camps were like
I
Camp Lucky
suppose.
Strike
I don't know it. Yeah, well, yeah.
and Chesterfield.
But that's what it was called. And that was in Namur, Namur, I think it was spelled,
Okay.
Belgium. And the thing I remember about that trip, in that ship, it was basically empty. And when you went to the head, it was up in the bow of the ship. It was like this. That was quite an experience.
Now, do you remember hearing about the death of President Roosevelt and having a
Sad.
reaction to that?
Sad, yeah. Well, that was before the war was over.
Yes,
It was in
right.
April. Not too long,
Right.
of course. But I did want to say, I forgot to mention, as things come to your mind, going over, we were in convoy, and I was on the SS Argentina. And because I was a radio operator and so on, they sent me up on the deck where the ship's radio operator was, and I was copying plain text so we could put out a mimeographed daily paper, and I got a big kick out of that, doing that. And of course, where we ate were these long tables, something like this, about yay high, and you didn't sit down, you just stood there. And, and most people ate because the ocean liner was pretty stable. Of course, we were surrounded by freighters and destroyers and everything else. But by that time, they pretty much had the U-boat situation under control. But prior to that, it was terrible. The U-boats were, they were sinking thousands of tons, losing a lot of merchant mariners. Yeah.
Now, where were you when you heard about the dropping of the atomic bombs?
Well, I would imagine I was in Epernay, France, because that's where I was until, what, end of September, beginning of October. And of course,
remember
August
your-
it was the end, you know.
Do you remember the reaction to that?
Oh, thank. Get kind of, yeah. Hooray, we can go home now. Oh, yeah. It's not that easy, you know. It has to be done in cycles or whatever. You just don't drop everything and run, you know. You got to tie things up a little bit. Although a lot of stuff was left behind. They claimed a lot of stuff was pushed overboard. I don't know. But everybody wants to go home now. Well, you can't just go home and just leave a mess. You got to, a lot of work still to be done. A lot of work still to be done. The same as in Iraq. If you pull out of there tomorrow, there's still a lot left undone, like it or not. And that's the sad part of what's going on today, is people don't realize we're still in a war. Still in a war.
Do you, when were you discharged and from where?
October 21st from 1945 from Fort Dix. And went home. Had a little reaction, I guess. I got sick of something. The doctor finally cured it for me, but it was kind of, what was from stress, not eating properly or whatever, not eating enough, I don't know. Then I got home in 45, In January of '46, I went back to high school as a postgraduate, until June. That summer, I think I bought a motorcycle. It was a 1941 surplus four-cylinder Indian motorcycle from the Garden City Police Department, which I still regret having sold it. If I had it today, you know how many thousands of dollars it would be worth, whatever. But then in the fall, I went to Hofstra College. And
So how did you feel going back at your age, being a veteran into high school?
I never had any problem with that, no. Because don't forget, all through grammar school and high school, I was part of assembly programs, doing one-act plays and stuff like that. So, I mean, I was used to kids, and being a Boy Scout and so on, a Boy Scout leader, and I have no problem with kids. Just today, I don't know, a little more firmer hand with these clowns, you know.
So did you use the GI Bill to go to Hofstra?
Yes, yeah.
Did you ever use the 5220 Club?
Yes.
Max it out?
Well, that's I right away when I got home. The 5220, yeah, that was a big help. That was a big help, yeah.
Okay.
Paid for gas anyway.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Not at that time. No, I've subsequently, well, I was a charter member of a VFW post in Naval where I live. And the first year, we had a commander, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And I was the chaplain, and they voted me to be the commander. So I was a commander until the post closed, over 20 years. That was because the men couldn't come out at night, so on and so forth, and we never had enough people for a quorum. So they disbanded and went to different posts. I went to the one here in St. Moriches, post 414, and I was commander there for 1 year. I'm currently a trustee, 3-year trustee. But in the meanwhile, I joined the
American Legion.
the American Legion, and I'm the first vice commander, and which means that if the commander doesn't want to do it next year, they'll be asking me to. Haven't made up my mind on that one yet.
Did you ever, after you left the service, did you ever stay in contact with anyone that served with you?
Never had the time, I guess, more than anything. Well, a couple of guys I heard from, yeah, but it was just like, hi, how you doing, blah, 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 and that was about it. In fact, well, 2 guys, I had collected some nice handguns, and of course, you're only allowed to take just so much, so they were taking it for me. And one guy, I think, was in Connecticut, and the other guy, I think, was from Missouri. And they did return them, but the other 1 or 2, never heard from them again. That's all right, that's fine. But
So you went back in the Air Force Reserves?
Yeah, in May 1950, I went in the Air Force Reserve over at Mitchell Field. And there was always that possibility, because of the Korean War, you know, that would be called to go over the Korean War. I was a supply sergeant, and we didn't. We practiced, you know, and so on and so forth. And I was there, let's see, until, what was it, May of '53? I was discharged.
Okay.
That's
now-
all on my paperwork there.
Yes, I was just looking at that. Now, where and when was that taken?
That was taken during that time, and that was at Mitchell Field, Long Island.
Whereabouts are you?
Where am I?
Yeah.
I'm the airman with the camera shoulder strap.
Oh,
Thank-
okay.
This one? I believe that is.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
The black guy's next to me, and there's another, yeah. That's,
Now, your unit then was integrated?
oh, yeah.
How did you, any problems, how did that go?
Never a problem, because of my father, going back to the beginning of this interview or talk, there was a black man who worked for him. And he was always dressed up. He was like his assistant, I guess. I remember him taking me to see the Statue of Liberty. He was a great guy. And when I was in the Boy Scouts, my first patrol leader was a black guy. So, I mean, as far as black people, I never had a problem with black people. Just like anybody else. So they were nasty, well, okay, you know, because I believe in equal opportunity based on merit. you're the best qualified, like Mother Teresa for doing heart work. Hey, Mother, I want you, I want you, you know. But there seems to be a mindset, you know, problem.
How do you think your time in the service has affected your life?
Well, it's an experience, one could say, that you wouldn't take $1 million for, but you wouldn't particularly want to do it all over again. I guess it's a human nature to something new, you know. I've done that, I've done this, and done that. I mean, I'm currently very active in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I'm the Flotilla Service Officer for Marine Safety and Environmental Protection. And I find it interesting because you don't have to own a boat. Because having had a boat, it could be, how they say it, it's the biggest hole in the water jet you can't fill with money, something like that. And also, I'm involved in Moriches Bay Historical Society. In fact, we're having a meeting tonight, and a gentleman from Italy came here in '51. He's a model builder, ship models. And this gentleman, you wouldn't believe, if you're not doing anything tonight, I'd like to have you come to our meetings at 7:30. Builds ship models, not like the average guy would do. He takes a block of wood, makes a hull, and scribes the top of it for the deck. This man builds his ship models the same as a shipbuilder. He planks it, he ribs it, yeah, and the whole, everything, yep. And I've seen some of his work, and he's going to bring some tonight. And we've got people, I guess, coming as far as Wading River and so on to come and see this. But the models are worth thousands, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Well, you're welcome. And